I had had quite a journey over the last 3 years. Before that, I was a pretty regular guy. I had a job I loved as a public defender. I was married for 20 years. Have a great kid. He's here tonight, Ravi, that I was raising. But, you know, I was a pretty regular guy. I was a little different in that I was into theater and movies the way a lot of guys are into sports. I'm a little obsessive about that. But other than that, I was a pretty normal guy. But then, about 3 years ago, my life kind of took a little left turn. I got diagnosed with colon cancer, stage 3, kind of out of nowhere. And so I had to I was in the hospital for 14 days, big operation, took out my colon. I was in the hospital for 14 days, recuperated at home, and then had to do chemotherapy for 9 months, and I was working full time. And it was a tough time, but I finished chemotherapy, I started to feel myself, and my main hobby was acting in community theater, so I got back into a show, and actually I was doing Oliver with my son, and wow, I'm gonna be myself again, you know, I got through with this cancer. Then my ex-wife, my wife at the time, decides she wants to divorce, doesn't want to try counseling, and she just wants out. So I'm kind of in a position where, like, man, I just got done with cancer, you know, I want to live life, you know. So I always thought if I was single, I'd like to try online dating. Because you know what you're getting into, you know what the person looks like. And I thought, well, this could be cool. And as Christina said, I had quite an adventure. I dated 30 different women in 2 years. So I got on the sites, right? And there's generally 3 sites. This has been talked about. There's 3 main sites. There's Match.com. That's pretty much where normal people go. So it wasn't for me. There's OkCupid. OkCupid's kind of cool because you answer like 1,000 questions, and then they do like percentages, and they match you up with somebody that's as weird as you are. Then there's Plenty of Fish. I don't know what to say about Plenty of Fish. It's kind of, see a lot of interesting folks on there. But, so I had some parameters when I was dating, as most people do. I wouldn't date anybody that didn't have a college degree. I wouldn't date anybody that was under 40. And I wouldn't date anybody, I would only date women that were either Jewish or atheist or agnostic. It was just having things in common kind of thing. So one day, I've been on a few dates, and this was it's the day, it would have been my first wedding. It was my first wedding anniversary after the split. So I wanted to go out that night, and a woman emails me off Plenty of Fish, and she says, "Hey, how you doing?" I look at her profile, it breaks all my rules. She's Catholic, she's under 30, high school degree, but I was like, what the heck? And before I go on, I'd had some adventures in dating already. I had a serious girlfriend for 2 weeks, starting off. I dated a woman who left in the middle of dinner because she was bored. And then I dated a woman, this woman was a professional, the doctor lawyer variety, and her profile said she believed in having sex with as many people as possible, as much as possible. So I'm like, this will be an interesting date. But then I learned that having sex with as many people as possible did not include me. So anyway, so back to the date that I was going to talk about. Okay, so this woman emails me and she says, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." I look at her profile and she looks kind of interesting. Again, breaks all my parameters. I'm like, what the hell? I want to go out tonight. And I noticed that she's into horror movies. So I write her, "Hey, you want to go out to a movie and dinner tonight?" She's like, "Yeah, call me at 5 o'clock. Now, anybody ever seen the movie Sling Blade here? If not, you guys don't believe how Thornton is? Yeah. Well, this woman was kind of the female version of Carl from Sling Blade. So I call her at 5 o'clock. She's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Fine." And she's like, "Well, I gotta help out my mama, so call me back at 8 o'clock. Okay. So So I call her back at 8 o'clock, and she's like, hey, where you been? You're late. I'm like, well, it's 8:02, but... So I'm like, you still want to go to the movie? She's like, yeah, come pick me up. I'm like, you want to meet at the movie? No. She's like, no, pick me up at my house. Now, going to a woman's home on a first date is a real no-no. You know, you're going to get jumped, you're going to get, you know, God knows what's going to happen. But I'm in what the hell mode that night. So I go to her house, and in a bad part of town, and I'm looking around, and there's like police tape in the courtyard. And I'm looking for a place, and I see a shirtless gentleman on the balcony. And he's like, hey, you looking for Nicole? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, she's up here. So I walk up, and it's a sparsely furnished, messy apartment, and I see Nicole is on the ground, and the shirtless gentleman's helping put her bra on. And she introduces to me, this is my brother, Jimmy. Jimmy wasn't real friendly, but you know, I met Jimmy, took his hand, and then I'm like, okay, you still want to go to the movie? It's late. She's like, yeah, let's go see what's playing at the theater. I'm like, well, there's Fandango, what the hell? So we go to the theater, and there was a horror movie. It was one of those early things. It was like a Jewish exorcist movie. So I'm like, okay, but it wasn't starting until later. So she said, you want to go to dinner? She's like, yeah. So we're driving around, and she's like, let's go to Chili's. I always want to go to Chili's. Okay, fine. Take me a little money. So I go to Chili's, and you know, we're doing what you do on a date. We're talking, and you know, I tell her that I'm Jewish, and she says, well, I don't know nothing about that. I never met no Jew before. And then I tell her that it was during the presidential campaign, 2012. I told her I'm volunteering for Obama, and she says, well, I don't know nothing about politics. I don't like that Obama guy, though. And then, you know, I tell her that I'm married, and then she says, well, I lied on my profile. I'm married, too. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, you met my husband. Jimmy is my husband. And she tells me, yeah, Jimmy has something called gender reassignment syndrome, so I'm not into that. So, and then you know, I tell her that I have a kid, and she says, well, yeah, I lied about that, too. I have 4 kids. And I learned that she has a 6-month-old baby in CPS custody, and 3 other kids, and she's been clean for 4 months. So I'm just kind of like, wow, this just doesn't happen. Like, should I run out of here? But I'm like, nah, I'm going to go with this, man. Because shit just doesn't happen. So, and I learned that she has seizures, depression, and bipolar. So we go to the movie, and she nuzzles with me, I nuzzle back. And then after, she's like, it's about midnight by this point, and she's like, look, listen, I need some music, I need to go to Walmart. Now, I surmise by this point she does not have a car. So I'm like, want to go to Walmart? She's like, yeah, I need some fucking music. I'm like, okay, so I take her to Walmart. And I'm following her. The first thing she picks out is some thong underwear. And then I'm following her, and then she picks out a boombox, and I operate carry for her. She spends about 15 minutes picking out some Christian rap CDs. And then we go to pay, and I'm like, okay, here it is. Headline, public defender, you know, blessed accessory to shoplifting. But she paid. And I take her home, and she's like, call me when you get home, you know, I'll make sure you're okay. It's 2 in the morning by this point. I'm like, sure, what the hell? So I call her. So the next day, I hear from her, and she said, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm with my son today. She's like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. And then she calls me the next day, and like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, well, I'm kind of busy today. So I'm like, all right, gotta nip this in the bud. So I write her, you know what, Nicole, had a good time with you. You know, maybe I do it again sometime, but, you know, no future for us. We're just too different. She wrote back, I can learn things, I have ADHD. And I wrote back, you make good choices, you know, you'll do good. But that was So, had a lot of other stops on my journey. I was engaged for a while. That didn't work out. But eventually, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take matters in my own hand. I want to meet, looking for what we call my beshert, which means my wife. And so I'm looking around, and I'm like, okay, so I start a meetup. Meetups are like where you meet people on the internet, do a certain thing. And I start one for Jewish singles over 40. And first event, only one woman shows up, and she's somebody I told about it, and we start dating. But she's not my beshert, she's not the one. And then like, okay, I'm gonna do this event one more time, and see who shows up. And I go there, and nobody shows up. But I get an email from a woman, she's like, where were you? I was there. And I'm like, well, I didn't see you. Now this woman's 31, so way breaks my parameters, but I'm like, but she says she wants to get together to talk about how to get the group going. So I'm like, okay. So we talk, and I learned that she's a theater major, and we have a lot in common. So after we had lunch, I'm like, she didn't really want to talk about the meetup. Felt like a date. And so there's this show I wanted to see at the ATC, other desert cities. It was amazing. But the woman I was dating at the time wouldn't really appreciate it. So I asked this woman, thinking it's not a date, not a date. But after it's not a date, and we're now engaged. So.